Hello and welcome. Today we'll continue our sneak peek at some of the new features of the Aurelia 2 router. Among other things, we'll create a really nice tab control using some of the new attributes of the AU viewport. This is part 3 in the series. There is a link to part 2 in the description, and that will contain some setup as well as a link to the repo from where we left off last time. Okay, let's get started. So I cloned the repo from part 2 into a new folder and npm installed it. So let's see if we can start it and see where we left the app. Okay, so we got some simple components here, a welcome component, an about component, and we've also got a books listing that requires a login. So if we do login, we can now see the available books in the listing. We can close the window. We've also got the option of logging out. And also if we do log in and I wait for 10 seconds, we will be automatically logged out. And then we can log in again. Okay, so that's it for the app. Now for the code. I'm not going to go through the code from the previous parts. If you're interested in it, got questions, take a look at the previous parts. So we're just going to continue. Right now, everything is in this one folder, the source folder. This isn't really, well, there is no structure, so let's add some structure. Not necessarily the best structure, the structure, but at least a structure. I'm going to structure this according to features. I'm going to have a books feature where I put everything that's related to books in that folder. Yes, I do want to move it. And then I'm going to move everything that's related to the main site into site. Now let's call that main. There you go. And move everything except app startup. So we're moving those. And there. Move. Yes, please. Yes, I do want to do that. Need to save. And compile, and that kind of makes sense. Yes. Because now in my app here, we're trying to, these are all in these are all main. And these are in books. Also, let's move those. See if that helps. Compile successfully. And let's take a look. Seems to be working. Okay, good. So what we're going to do now is that we're going to temporarily disable the timeout here. And I'm also going to actually auto log in here whenever I start. So let's start by just setting that I'm always starting with a user, and we're going to comment this out. Let's not comment it out. Let's do private timeout time. That's a bad name. Camry equals 0. So let's do a check here. If it's bigger than 0, greater than 0, then this timeout time. There we go. So this will now not create a timeout at all. We can actually try this by, let's put it at 2. Let's see what happens if we refresh. Oh yeah, okay. And now let's do that. Refresh. Starting as myself. That okay, I need to do. I want to test this. I can't be. This will only take place once I log in. So logging in. And log out again. Okay. Right. So, and if I now put this to 0. Log out. 2, 3, 4, 5. Still logged in. Okay, now in order to not have to log in every time, let's do this. Very good. 2, 3. Okay. Excellent. So we have some more stuff we want to do for clarity. I know some of you will like this, but I'm going to actually remove the fallback here to make things really clear what we're doing. So for the, see that's in books. I'm going to remove the fallback here, which means that once I do that, it's going to list the full path here. This is for clarity now while we're working with it. Has no real effect on anything. I just, for the tab control, I wanted to see it in a bit more detail. Okay, so that's that. Is there something else I want to do before? Oh yeah, let's take a look at something. This is the URL hash thing here is a bit annoying. Let's see if we can get rid of that. Can we? Yes, we can. Is it hard? No, it isn't. Okay, so let's go into our main file here where we register the router configuration. We have the option to customize how the router behaves by setting a whole range of options, and the one we want to fix now is use URL fragment hash. This defaults to true. If I set it to false instead, compile over here, and these are now gone, the URL hash. Here, note that in order for this to work in your server, the web server that serves these pages, needs to know to send it to the spa rather than look for a link on the server. So you need to configure that. It's easy to do in most servers today, so just look at your server documentation. I'm using the Webpack Dev server here, and it's already configured to send everything to the start page. So, okay, so we've done that. Now, is there anything I want to do? Oh, before I get started, I had questions or a thing. We're doing the goto command, the goto custom attribute will help you by creating, let's see if we can get this. It will highlight selected links by adding the goto class on the anchor tags. And I've then styled that, how did I do that? Goto-active, this is the class, right? So if I set this to red, it'll be red. So now if you're using CSS module forces that you need to make sure that this is a global class. So you could either do global like that, or you could move it into the index file and declare it there. Just something to be aware of in order for that to work, so that you don't run into issues with it. With that not working, that's a question I had from someone. Okay, so let's move on. So what I want to do now is implement a simple tab control here, and this sticks to the feature grouping things by feature. So for the book here, the book details, which is this, for the book details, I want to add a tab control, and I want this to be using the router as well. So let's just close this off and bring up the book details. So I could, this is fairly easy, I could just do nav. Let's call this with a class. I could do, it doesn't have to be nav, but nav kind of makes sense. And go to, let's create a new about books. About books. There you go. I will then need an AU viewport. Don't need to name it since it's the only one within the scope, but it's good practice. So let's call that books tabs. No, data. That's a bad name, but you know. There you go. So there. And in order for this to work, we need to import. Actually, we need to have about books. So let's create that about books HTML now. Reading books, good for you. There you go. And we now need to import that one from and there you go. Reading books is good for you. Okay, so let's add another tab here, another anchor. Let's see. Let's just do. Let's go to the. This is the about for the entire app. So let's just do that. See how that looks. We've got two, and we can switch between them. So this is the about. This is the page about the app. And this is it. So this is the same as this one. Now, a main difference here is that I needed to import the about books, but not the about. Why not? Well, because the about is already imported in my app, and my app is hierarchy is above in the hierarchy. Here you can see that this is my app, right? So since this is done through the dependency injection and the containers are inheriting each other, not inheriting, but they are connected, the about here is already known by this viewport here, the component. So that's why I don't need to import it. Okay, so we've done that. Let's see how this looks. This doesn't look good at all. So let's see if we can, I'll try to avoid too much styling because it's not styling sneak peek, but let's at least do something that makes it look a bit more like a tab here. So we did have a nav that we called tab, right? And it has a background color that's a gradient, and we also, let's do those unmarked, let's do them gray. So let's do this. First, remove the background. Nope. Image. None. And then let's do nav tab A and have them, let's do light gray. And also give them a border. The same color. Okay. Right. So now when this is selected, we want that one to be white, I'd say. And also make the border at the bottom white, transparent, even. Okay, so that's close. Now you can see that these are actually overlapping here. I think that's because, so we need to do the viewport here is class. Let's call that a tab as well. I think we should, let's do that. And let's space it out a bit. Viewport tab. It should have the display block here. I'm setting it to flex further up than we heard. Okay, so there you go. Okay, so close enough. Yeah, now let's just get rid of the border thing here. So let's change the position to relative. Oh wait, hold on, let's do that. We need to do it there. And so we moved this one down one step, which means that the border here will overwrite. Okay. Let's add some padding to this one, so that it's to 5, 30. Okay, so there you go. Easy peasy. Working tab. Now let's see if we can do something a bit more interesting, because these are just HTML components. We could probably close that one now. These are just HTML components. Let's see if we can, and they're not really that useful. But let's first do, let's see if I do this. You can see nothing here is again, it's just like the app was when we started. This viewport is empty. So we could do, if you want it to show the about for us when we enter here, so we'll just add default about books. And now it's set to the default whenever we enter a book. Okay, so let's see if we can do a bit more interesting. Let's take the book details Yeah, let's take that one and copy it and call it description. And we'll also need this one. There you go. Don't need that. Let's just say the description about the book. By maybe just emphasize that a bit. This is again not the way to do it. And then we need to fix this. Okay, so we've now got the description here. We can close this one. And how do we get this link in then? Well, we get it in by doing just as you might have guessed, let's just do book ID. Oh. Compiled. That didn't work. Why didn't that work? Because import from. And now, since this is in an HTML only component, and there you go. Color magic. And maybe it does make more sense to start with the description. That's of course also doable. Let's just do, I'll just switch that to this. Oh wait, before we do that, let me show you something. I'll show you. See, the interesting part here is that one of the advantages with this is that this using the router like this is that these aren't loaded until, let's see, we have, let's remove that before navigation. Let's remove that. Don't need it. So that's gone. And let's go into the description here. Because description loaded. If you've got a tab control or tabs that are busy tabs that are loading data offline through an API or just plotting a map or just doing a lot of work, you don't want the tabs, all the tabs to be loaded when you go into in this case the details. If fetching the description here, I've already fetched it, but if this was fetching something else, I don't want that to be loaded just when I click this. And as you can see, the description is only loaded when I activate this tab. That goes for all of them, right? So if I clear this out and I go here, nothing, there you go, loaded, and loaded again. This makes it very efficient, right? So there's no unnecessary waiting for loading busy tabs or tabs with lots of data and stuff like that. So now that we've done that, we can remove it. And let's go back and make list the default. So that whenever I'm clicking into it, yeah, that's the tab control. Tab's the really easy way. So now you might notice that if we look at the URL, if you're one of those people who want to look at the URL, you can see that we've got the books, the book details, and we got the about, the description here. And these are, of course, deep links that are possible to just dive straight into a specific position. You'll also notice that if I do wander around here, I could do back and forward among the tabs here. That is, of course, switching to another title, description, about, which of course is also very nice. But sometimes you don't want the deep link, and you might not even want the history, but let's start with the deep link. So to get rid of the link being added, the component being added to the URL here, we can simply just add the attribute no link to the viewport. Now, as we move around, the link isn't there. I've still got history working for the viewport, but the link isn't there. So deep linking into this one wouldn't make as much sense. You still could, but it's not listed in the URL. So, but what if, let's say I start here, I move around a bit, I move to the next one and do some. What if I don't want history to be preserved? I don't want navigation history within my tabs. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't, depending on what you're doing. So what you want is that when I'm switching, regardless of how many times I've stepped here, when I'm switching to the next book, I want to go back to the previous book where I was. Well, there's also a no history attribute that you can put again on the viewport. And this will now remove so that history within these tabs aren't preserved. So if I start with the color of magic here, I move down to it and take 2 steps. Instead of now going back, when I do back, instead of going to about books, I move to the color of magic, where it was. The same goes with forward. And it's retaining the last tab, the last step I was on. So there's some sense to it. Yeah. You could move this one to about and then go to right. And now we'll go back to previous book with about, and if I step back again, the book is also changed and it's remembering where I was. So with these, you can do a combination of having the viewport behave according to your expectations, your customer's expectation, or whatever. And it's as easy as adding an attribute, and of course removing it if you want to. So that's that. And you could also, of course, now here do, don't need to be there. If I'd had the fallback here on books. Does it remember? Yeah. So now we're here. We got this functionality where it's stepping between books. Yeah. Okay. One of the nice parts with this is that if I've got this feature thing going, if I got this feature structure where different links, different import and stuff like that, routes. So they are this direct routing where you don't have to specify in a configure it in a routing table, can be combined with configured routes in the routing table. So these are specific for this component, and this means that you can easily make these into features that you mix and match into configured routes. So you could configure in your main part or in your app have a routing table that lists the most common components. Let's say these components, these three, and then when you were into maybe even this one, but then you wouldn't list the description about books, but they will be taken care of by direct routing that you don't have to configure. So you can mix and match between these two forms of routing, route specification, whatever you want to call it, so that you could make components, features, plugins, whatever that use these features from the viewport, regardless of what the app around you is using. So that's one of the features with it. Going to do something. This is regarding a question I got, so we're going to straighten this out. Let's in main. Yeah, let's create and let's say that one, it shouldn't be in books, it should be in main. So we're doing a contacts. There you go. This is our contact information. Amen. This is just a this is just for testing out, so it doesn't really do anything. And in about, and then we'll do so let's go here and find out. So okay, so this is now not working, of course, because we haven't imported it. I just want to stress that it's not where the link is. It's not the go-to. That's the component that needs to know about it. The component that's being navigated to. It is the component that holds the viewport that's it's going to be loaded into, which means that this, just like many of the other ones, need to be here. It's an HTML. There you go. Let's hold on. Contact HTML. Oh, that's not so strange. I need to tell it where to load. So this was now trying to load the component in the viewport in here, but there wasn't any. So I need to say load this. I need to step up one step in the viewport hierarchy and tell it to load within the same viewport that I am. And there you go. Right? So now this has an interesting thing here. If I'm now doing contact information, it will load in the viewport that the about box is shown. So it will replace it. This might be what you want, and then you're good. But it might also not be what you want. What you may want is that the contact information is always loaded at the top here, at the root of the hierarchy. There's two ways to go about that. We can go into this and send it one step up. Let's just test this and see where it gets us. Now we're actually replacing this one. Yeah. So, and this then causes this to still work, because if it's now told to step 2 levels up, 1, 2, 2 scope steps up, but since this is the top scope, it would just go up to the top. So that's one way to do it. So if I were to, if I were to do this and add another step, I'll end up in the root. Now this, of course, is one way to do it, but most of the time, well, let's say you don't want to do this from within the hierarchy and go up. There's also the option of starting from the top instead of the current location and doing this. So this is now the root, which means that if I do this, I end up here. This also means that I should go down in the hierarchy. So if you want to move upwards in the hierarchy, you can either go straight to root or do relative paths here. Or rather not paths, but hierarchies. Yeah. Let's do that. Yeah, and that's what I had to show you today. That might be the quickest and easiest and nicest tab control you've ever seen. Well, it's nice enough. And it gives you some nice benefits. Okay, hope to see you again soon. Bye-bye.